For some of y'all that don't know what this live is about, it's going to be about interference with child custody. Basically, in simpler terms, baby mama don't want to turn over the child at the exchange location, and baby daddy doesn't want to turn over the child at the exchange location. And so I'm going to go into what your rights are as a parent. I'm not an attorney. This isn't legal advice. You can look it up. That's what I did. I'm just telling you the shortcut, how to get there. You can believe me or not. I don't really care. This is for parents that are trying, or these are for parents that are trying to do the right thing, trying to follow the court order. I understand there's parents out there that might take advantage of that situation. But give me one more second. I'm going to go live on TikTok. So, so tonight I want to give you a little bit of information about interference with child custody. And those that don't know what interference with child custody is, and I'm sorry for the guys that are on Facebook just heard this spiel, but for some of y'all that don't know what interference with child custody is, interference with child custody in the state of Texas is a state jail felony. And to make it completely or make it real simple, it's basically when your baby mama, your ex-wife, your baby daddy, your ex-husband doesn't want to abide by the court orders. And what they seem to do is they don't turn over the children. Law enforcement's called. They come to the house and basically nothing gets done. The cops tell you it's a civil matter and it kind of goes from there. And if you have money, then you can go hire an attorney and you can fight it in civil court, which will take you 5 to 7 years, depending on how fast or slow your court is. And it causes emotional, mental, and a financial hardship on not just the parents, but on the children. And our children are the ones that are affected emotionally and mentally. And when you have civil courts that don't uphold the orders, then the only way to actually get your orders enforced is maybe going the criminal route. And a lot of people don't know about the criminal route because they've always been told traditionally by law enforcement that it's a civil matter and you need to go hire an attorney. For those that are on TikTok, I'm going live on Facebook as well. I'll be answering a lot of my questions about 30 or 45 minutes from now. I'm going to get into my spiel. I'm going to talk about interference with child custody. I'm going to give you a lot of information. You can record this. You can screen record. You can take notes. Anything I tell you, it's up to you whether you use it or not. I'm not an attorney. I'm not a lawyer. This isn't legal advice. And if you want to use what I say as a tool, use it. If you don't have to. You can disconnect and go somewhere else. Again, this information is free. I'm not a lawyer. It's not legal advice. But my team and myself have dug into this situation for years. And when parents don't abide by the court order, ultimately the child suffers. You go back into civil litigation, the lawyers take you for a ride, the judges take you for a ride, guardian ad litem, and you're ultimately stuck in court, and there's no relief. So what we have done is we found another avenue for parents to take, meaning that if you can't get things done in civil court because you don't have money, this is another avenue for you. If the civil courts aren't upholding or aren't moving as fast, again, interference with child custody is another avenue for you to find relief, for you to preserve that parent-child relationship. Let's start dispelling some rumors now. Some people think, hey, this is a father's rights movement. George just wants to make parents felons. And that's absolutely incorrect. From the get-go and from the beginning, this isn't about making the other parent a felon. This is about holding the other parent accountable to the court orders in which you already paid for. The judge is already adjudicated in the best interest of the child. And so you want accountability from that other parent. And you can't be a parent if the other parent doesn't allow you to be a parent. So someone said they can't hear. I hope people can hear because I got like 50 people watching. Let me turn this button on. That's probably why you can't hear. Well, I have 50 people watching on TikTok. Anyhow, I hope y'all can hear me now. Sorry, TikTok, but I'm doing some live on Facebook. And if you're now just catching on, I'm sorry. Okay, so I'm on live on my page on Facebook and on TikTok. I'm glad y'all can hear now. I had 50 people watching on mute. But just to go over a little bit now, this is about interference with child custody. Basically, it's a big issue. Mothers and fathers, custodial, non-custodial parents are damaging our children emotionally and mentally when they don't abide by the court orders. And this isn't a father's rights issue. I'm not trying to make parents felons. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to hold parents accountable to that court order. Sometimes the civil process doesn't move fast enough. Sometimes it costs too much money. Some parents don't have the money to keep being going in and out of court. They don't have money for the attorneys, the ad litems, the home visits or the supervised visitation. And what we want to do is we want to give parents another avenue of relief. And as I said, we're not trying to make parents felons. This is the last thing, but we want to hold parents accountable. So interference with child custody. Let's just go over the facts. And the facts are that interference with child custody in the state of Texas is a state jail felony. I know that you go and law enforcement tells you it's a civil matter. Go back to court, go hire an attorney, or here's some other resources you can go and check out to see if they can help you. And some of us parents just don't have money to keep going around in that circle. So interference, Texas Penal Code 2503. You can Google it. Again, I'm not an attorney. This isn't legal advice, but I encourage you to look up some of the things that I say. This doesn't pertain to parents that are late. If a parent is running late, they're having a blowout, they have an accident on the way or a family emergency, interference with child custody isn't going to be filed because the other parent is having some sort of issue and you just want to retaliate and get that other parent in trouble. Now, interference with child custody is when the persons know that the person or persons taking or retention of the child is in violation of a court order or judgment, including temporary order. Okay, so what that means is basically when one person knows that the other person's taking and keeping back retention violates the terms of a court order. A lot of police officers say we can't enforce that. It's a civil court order, and that's absolutely incorrect. We're going to talk about DAs in just a second. But when law enforcement, and traditionally law enforcement's been telling this to these people for years, and it's just kind of been what's been said. And it wasn't until we had the internet, people started Googling, we started reading laws, and parents and advocates like myself started putting two and two together, and we started learning other loopholes. Now, I don't believe this is somewhat of a huge loophole, but it's doing what's right. When you preserve the parent and child relationship by the enforcement of the court order, the child wins. It's a win-win emotionally and mentally. It may even take a financial toll on the children. I know that as a parent, being told to keep going back to civil court, go hire an attorney, and then get stuck in mediation and home visits and all that, they cost a lot of money. So for a fact, interference with child custody, Texas Penal Code 2503 is a state jail felony, and it's a felony in most states. So you can check that out. Texas Penal Code, obviously, and I got to reach my audience, right? So, and there's some people that aren't may have the education to grasp some of the things that I said. So I'm going to kind of, I don't want to say dumb it down, but I'm going to dumb it down. Basically, Texas Penal Code is the Texas statute, the Texas law chapter 25.03 of the Penal Code here in Texas says it's a felony. Now, I just said it's a felony in most states in the United States. So if you're watching from another state here in the United States, you can look up, just Google your state, Alabama, interference with child custody, and I'm sure it'll take you to where you need to go. But this is pertaining to Texas laws, Texas parents that are have court orders within the jurisdiction of the state of Texas. So when law enforcement tells you interference with child custody is a state jail felon or is a civil matter, they're absolutely incorrect. What they're talking about is liability for interference with possessory right. That's Texas Family Code 42.002. Texas Family Code 42.002. That's civil and it's a tort. What most attorneys usually do is do an enforcement by contempt. You can do a motion to enforce, and you can do a motion for an enforcement by contempt. And when you add the by contempt, basically you're asking for jail time. So there's several ways in which you can enforce your court order. And I'll tell you right now, the cheapest, the easiest is probably just getting law enforcement to do it. Will law enforcement do it for you? Absolutely not. Law enforcement will give you every reason to tell you it's a civil matter and to get out of their face, right? Quit calling. Or if you call again, we're going to charge you with harassment. It's a common practice that happens. This is what this page is for. We're here to educate parents, trying to tell you that you can't be criminally trespassed from an exchange point because the the judge has jurisdiction over that police officer, right? Judges sign warrants, so they tell the police whose door to go kick in. So if a judge orders you to pick up your child at your ex's house on that day at that time, they can't criminally trespass you. They're going to threaten. And in my case, they threw me in jail. Did I beat the charge? Absolutely. I always tell parents to stay on the public street and always record. If you are watching, if you're having any types of issue in family court, if you're having any issues with possession and access, having any issues with your attorney, the ad litem, hell, I record my judicial proceedings. Would I tell you to do it? I would tell you to do it, but don't take it from me. I did get arrested for it, not for filming, but for something else. And that was ultimately dismissed. But what I like to emphasize, is that when you record, you protect yourself. You protect yourself and you record that crime in progress. Again, interference with child custody is a state jail felony. Now, let's start moving into the district attorneys. District attorneys won't take the charge. District attorneys, blah, 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 right? Everybody, because the cops always say the district attorney won't take this charge. It's not up for the police officer, sheriff, constable to tell anybody if the DA is going to take the charge or not. Interference with child custody, it being a state jail felony, law enforcement has a duty to report that felony, not call the DA and ask the DA if they'll take charges, but to actually take and report that felony charge. And so you have to work your way up the ladder. You can't just say, well, people stop at law enforcement. People stop at law enforcement and they tend to say, well, law enforcement just told me they can't do anything about it. And I always advocate for you to keep pushing. And right now, law enforcement has a body cam that they all wear that they're recording you and whatever's going on. And it may be hard to ask for those recordings through public information for your court hearing. And you may have to pay an attorney to subpoena that video if you go to court. So what I always tell people is to look at that officer's body cam. When you look at that officer's body cam and you tell them, hey, look, I'm here. I'm court ordered to be here to pick up my child at 6:00. My ex is not here. Now I have a right to my child, and a right is an entitlement. I'm entitled to my children at 6:00 at this time. And if we don't enforce these orders, this is how children go missing. When children go missing, they can be trafficked, another big issue here in the state of Texas. So we always like to advocate that both parents be in the lives of their children, because when you have two sets of eyeballs looking at the children, you're able to govern them and raise your child, I guess, a bit more. When one parent isn't able to keep up with the child, isn't able to keep up with the child in school, their medical decision making, or even see the child, that's when children are abused. And so that's a whole nother segment for a whole nother time. But just to get back to interference with child custody, it's a state jail felony, and you have other civil reliefs to help you. Now, again, traditionally, law enforcement's been telling you for years that it's a civil matter. So, okay, so what I want to do, and for those that are on TikTok, if you haven't joined the group, if you haven't followed me, we have a Facebook group. We have a Facebook page and a Facebook group. And in the group, we have a file section. And in that file section, we've put a whole bunch of files. But tonight, I'm going to go over what's called number 4, state and federal laws. And I want to go over them with you because I think this is where you get most of your education. And if there's law enforcement that is watching, hopefully they'll be able to start grasping what your rights are as a parent. So if you don't know what your rights are as a parent, this is a great video for you. A lot of parents contact me and say they haven't seen their child in 4, 5, 7 years, and they don't have money to go to court, and essentially they just lose being a parent, and the other parent eventually kidnaps that child from that loving parent. So I'd like to go over some of the terminology. I like to go over some of these things for these parents that are having these types of hardships. One thing about me, if y'all can share it with a person, you can record anything I say. Again, I'm not an attorney. This isn't legal advice. This is just for you to gain some knowledge. You can recheck, you can DM and ask me certain questions. I really don't mind. I'm not getting paid for this. This is just to help you parents going through this issue. And I'm just telling you the hardships I had, and hopefully this can help resolve some of the issues that you're having without y'all going through the same route I did. So let me get to my page or my group. I'm sorry. And if y'all can't find me on Facebook, send me a DM. I'll send you the link to my group, and you'll have access to all of these files, and you'll have access to other parents that are going through this, that are asking the same questions. I'll tell you right now, a lot of parents say, hey, this thing is not enforced. They told me it's a civil matter. It's not enforced, not enforced, not enforced. I understand that. When we started this, this group and this page, we didn't see anybody enforcing. In fact, a lot of people told us, some of us advocates, that we were wrong. We didn't know what we were saying. We ended up going to Austin. We started talking to legislators. We started trying to change the law. We ended up changing the law. We've gone to testify before these commissions that will turn a bill into a law. So we've done a lot of work in the last 7 years. And we try to advocate for both parents to be in the lives of children. And family law is very complex. Family law is a business. And so we try to give parents an easier route. We try to educate you. We have these tools now in 2024. We have social media. We have TikTok, Snapchat, Instagram, where we can come to assemble like we are tonight, and we can talk about these things. In 1985, we didn't have the opportunity to gather like this and go over some of this information and learn our rights. And you can't enforce your rights to your children if you don't know your rights. A lot of people think that the child can make their own decisions at a certain age, and that's absolutely incorrect. By state law here in the state of Texas, the child may confer with the judge, and the judge may take their wishes into consideration. And some of the education that we do is we talk about the language within the law. May, shall, some of those words weigh more than other words. And so they mean something. And if you don't know the meaning of may or shall, they both mean something different. And they sound alike, but they're really different, and they have two different meanings. So we'd like to educate parents so that they know how to correctly read their court order, and they're able to put it together a little bit easier when you go over this terminology like may or shall. So for the rest of this live, I'll just tell you that may is asking, it's permissive, and shall means you have to do it, and must means you better do it. So when you're looking at your court order, for those that are watching, I want you to read your court order again and look at may and shall, and look at the law. And when you're reading the laws that I'm also bringing up, if you see may, highlight it. If you see shall, highlight it. Another one to remember, or the other two words I want you to remember, are right and duties. Because when you look at your court order, it says George Saldana has a right to his child on this date. Well, we all know what a right is, but what's the legal definition of right? And tonight I'm going to hopefully be able to bring some of that to you. And what's the legal definition of duty? Right? We have a duty to support our child. We have a duty for care, control, and protection as per the Texas Family Code. So when you show up at 6 o'clock and your child is not there, you have a duty. And what does duty mean? Duty means an obligation. You have an obligation for care, control, and protection. So if you can't find your child, or your child is not there and you're supposed to have possession of that child, these are all the things I'm going to go over tonight. We talked about duty, so let's talk about right. Right is an entitlement. It's an entitlement. It's an entitlement. It's an entitlement. Let me say it again. It's an entitlement. I have the right. I have the right to free speech, which I'm doing now. I have the right to assemble. I have the right to bear arms. I have the right to a fair trial, right? Miranda rights. You have the right. You have the right to record in public. All these are rights. When what is a right? A right is an entitlement. You are entitled to that. So when the first family code I want you to look up, and I don't know how to do the bring the screens in and bring the screens out and change, so I'd rather just say it. And if you have a pen, you're screen recording, I'll tell you that go to chapter 151 of the Texas Family Code. 151 of the Texas Family Code. 151.001 Texas Family Code. Read it. And it'll say that is a joint managing conservator, which most of our platform is. Most of parents believe that they're a custodial or non-custodial. Stop that shit right now, guys. Stop calling yourself custodial, non-custodial. You're a joint managing conservator, or you're a possessory conservator, or you're sole managing conservator, okay? Because there's no definition for custodial or non-custodial. Do we know what a custodial and non-custodial is? Absolutely, right? But that's where the process gets a little gray. That's where if you don't know what you are, a lot of parents come to me and I ask them, are you a joint managing conservator? And a lot of these parents don't know. They just refer to themselves as a non-custodial. And again, in the Texas Family Code, there is no definition for custodial or non-custodial parent. It's conservator, a managing conservator. So when you're a joint managing conservator, under chapter 151 of the Texas Family Code, it says you have a right to physical possession of the child. You have a right to physical possession. 151.001 of the Texas Family Code. Again, you can join the group. You can go to the file section, go to number 4, state and federal laws. All this is there for you guys. It's already highlighted. All you have to do is print it out. It's free. Use your own ink, use your own paper, print it, keep it with your court orders. And when you go to exchanges, you're ready there to show the police, hey, look, Texas Team 2503 did this. They put the laws here for you to read, Mr. Officer, and I just want to read them into your body cam. And so you start reading some of the stuff that we highlighted. Again, these are pulled straight from the Texas statute page. This is straight from the Texas website that puts all the Texas laws. So it's just screenshotted and put together in a package, and then it's highlighted the key words. And so if you go down to 151.003 of that same chapter in the Texas Family Code, it says no state agency may have a policy that violates the fundamental rights of parents. Now, when you go to exchange your child, you have a law enforcement agency. Again, I'm talking about Texas laws, kind of why I'm wearing the shirt tonight and it says Texas in the back. is because these law enforcement agencies cannot have a policy by law in the state of Texas that violates the fundamental rights to the child. And so that's what a court order is. That's what your civil court order. Those are your rights. Now, everything in that court order is not enforceable by criminal penalty. The only portions that are, let me say this, the only portion that is punishable by criminal penalty, and I'm leaving a portion out, only the smart people are going to get it, but the only portions that are enforced by criminal charges are possession and access. Now, when we talk about possession and access, that means exchange points. You're not turning the child over. When the person knows that the person's taking or retention violates the court order, judgment, or including temporary order, it doesn't mean you can go file criminal charges on your ex because she won't let you FaceTime your child, or you can file criminal charges because she won't invite you to the doctor's office. That cannot be criminally enforced. Possession and access can be criminally enforced, and it can be civilly enforced by civil and criminal contempt on the civil side. And again, you have Texas Family Code 42.002. That's the tort for the liability for interference with possessory right. And that's pretty much the same thing. It says the same thing pretty much as 2503. But again, don't take it from me. Go look it up. Let me pull up that. Again, I'm going to be answering questions at the end of this, but I'm doing it from my Facebook profile because I think those are the only comments I can see. I can't really see what's going on TikTok right now. I'm still learning all of this stuff. And I'm based out of San Antonio, Texas. My case is in Harris County. I try to help parents whenever I can, wherever I go. I've gone to Dallas. We've created a team that's that we've educated that can also help you. And again, we do a lot of our help on Facebook. We're dipping into TikTok right now, and we try on Instagram and some other platforms. But okay, so when you go to the Texas Family Code, we just talked about 151 of the Texas Family Code. You go to 152 of the Texas Family Code, and what is a child? Law enforcement likes to tell parents, hey, when the child's 13, they can decide whether they want to go with mom or dad. Absolutely false. Again, part of the whole narrative I've been telling you, law enforcement will tell you whatever they have to tell you to get you to beat off. Just move along, get away. I don't want to deal with this. I deal with you every other week. Law enforcement, the DA doesn't want to take charges. I called the DA. They said they're not going to take charges. They will tell you anything and everything. And that's why I always tell you to record. So a child by the Texas Family Code means an individual who has not obtained 18 years of age. So a child is somebody who has not reached 18. It's not really rocket science. I think we all knew that, unless you're in another state where 16 is considered an adult. But here in the state of Texas, it's 18. And a lot of police officers like to say that, oh, the child's 14, they can pick and choose who they want to go. No, a child is governed by that court order until the age of 18, whether they like it or not. Child can't just say, I'm going to go buy a pack of smokes or a case of beer. They don't have that option, right? They are governed by that court order under the jurisdiction of that judge. And if they've made you a joint managing conservator or a possessory, you have certain rights. And as a joint managing conservator, like I said, you have these rights, these entitlements, and they're all listed on your court order. So every time you see on your court order has a right, that means you have the entitlement. Some court orders say some parents have the exclusive right, the exclusive entitlement to make some decisions. So I want you to go back, look at your words, right? And look at all those words where it says right and change it to, like I was just saying, your man just had a brain fart. Your right is your entitlement. So everywhere where it says right, change it to entitled. I'm entitled to that. Right. We always say people are entitled to certain things and they shouldn't be. Well, those are your rights. They're printed on a piece of paper. It's signed by the judge and it's stamped by the court clerk. Those are your rights, and stand on your rights. Stand on your rights as a parent. And these are some of the things that a lot of attorneys don't tell you. They just kind of take your money, tell you, yeah, we'll go beat that deadbeat dad into court, or we'll get that gold digging mom. And they kind of flare up the tensions. And when they flare up the tensions, it creates more litigation, and it's not in the emotional and mental best interest of that child, because the child is stuck in the middle of two dueling parents because lawyers are not dealing ethically. And then litigation just continues until one person becomes broke. So a child is at the age of 18. Now, what determines child custody? Now, we're in chapter 152 of the Texas Family Code. You can Google it. I hope y'all are writing it down. I hope y'all are either coming to the group where it's already written down, it's already highlighted. But child custody determination. Here's the definition of child custody determination. Let me say it again. What determines child custody? 152.102 of the Texas Family Code, number 3, says child custody determination. What determines child custody? Means a judgment, decree, or order of the court providing for legal custody, physical custody, or visitation with respect to a child. So you have legal custody as a parent, and we're going to get into legal custody in just a second. But physical custody, you have the right to have that child physically as a joint managing conservator. And as a joint managing conservator, you have the right, if it's visitation, and we're going to talk about visitation. Visitation with respect to a child. Child custody determination. What determines child custody? Visitation with respect to a child. So goes back to what I was saying about custodial and non-custodial parents. When you show up on scene to pick up your child for the exchange, law enforcement says, well, who are you? And well, I'm the dad, and I'm the non-custodial. You just told that officer, like, I don't have any rights. She kind of gives me my rights, and I'm just supposed to be here by the court order. That's how you sound. But when you say, hey, look, it's 6 o'clock, it's 6:03. I'm supposed to be in possession of the child. I'm supposed to have custody of the child. I'm the custodial parent. That police officer is going to get jogged, right? He's going to be like, whoa, wait a minute. And you're right, because child custody determination equals visitation with respect to a child. So when you have your visitation time, you become the custodial parent. Now, let me scroll down to legal custody, because I want to talk to you about legal custody, because it goes into the whole custodial and non-custodial. Remember, I just told you that custodial and non-custodial parents, there's no definition for custodial and non-custodial in the family code. So legal custody means the managing conservatorship of a child. So again, all of you joint managing conservators, you have legal custody. All you joint managing conservators, if you're a joint managing, go look on the first or second page of your court order. It'll say George Saldana is a joint managing conservator. It won't say George Saldana is a custodial or non-custodial. It'll say possessory conservator, joint managing conservator, or sole managing conservator on your Texas court order. So legal custody means the managing conservatorship of the child. So you have legal custody of your child. You can have legal custody of your child. Stop calling yourself a non-custodial, because that's what you look like when you go and talk to I'm just here because I want to be a dad and she doesn't want to enforce the order. Start standing on your business. Start demanding, hey, I have rights. I have my entitlements. I am supposed to be in possession of that child. And when we talk about custody, think about if you ask an officer, hey, is the suspect in custody? Right? The child's supposed to be in my custody, or the child's supposed to be in your custody, right? And the child's not in your custody. So there's an issue. The judge has ordered you at 6 o'clock to make that exchange. So a lot of these officers, well, there's nothing I can do. No, there's absolutely things you can do. Now, again, we're not here to make parents felons. We're not trying to send them all to jail. I know some of y'all want to send your ex to jail and you'll be absolutely happy, but that's not our objective, right? My objective is to spend time with my child as the court has already deemed in the best interest of my child. So when that offending parent is keeping that child away from you, they are actually not only in contempt, but they're breaking the penal code, which is a state jail felony. So we just talked about visitation. So what's the definition for visitation? What determines child custody? Right? Any legal custody, physical custody, or visitation in respects to a child. But what does the word visitation mean? And I'm going to read it to you. And again, we're in chapter 152 of the Texas Family Code. Number 16, visitation means the possession of or access to a child. Now, if you look at your court orders, what does your court order say? Possession and access of a child. It doesn't say visitation. It doesn't say your anything else. It says possession and access orders. Your child support and your possession and access orders are stapled together on one order. Why they say they're two different issues, who knows? I'll address that in another live. But for right now, visitation in the state of Texas means possession and access to a child. You have possession and access orders. It says it in big bold letters on the top of your order, possession and access. So you become the custodial parent at visitation. No lawyer, okay, and this is what we always hear. Well, my ex said her lawyer said she could keep the child from me. No lawyer, let me take it back. No ethical lawyer will tell you to do that. Lawyers are bound by the law, and of course, some of them kind of deceive the law when they tell their clients to break the law and then hide under attorney-client privilege. So you'll have unethical attorneys tell parents to break the law. Ethical attorneys will say, hey, look, I know you have an issue, but unless there's imminent danger to the child, you have to do that child exchange. You have to change. You have to exchange that child, whether you like it or not. Now, unless there's an order or emergency order, a protective order, or restraining order that comes up before the exchange, then you don't have to do the exchange and you're legally covered. But some lawyers, and in my situation, they were helping my ex to keep my son from me. It's kind of why I kind of got into this whole advocacy stuff. So public policy, let's move to section 153 of the Family Code. Section 153 of the Texas Family Code. Again, I'm not a lawyer. This isn't legal advice. I'm reading to you what the law says. You can take it how you want. Some lawyers don't like what I'm doing because I'm giving y'all so much information. So some of these lawyers like to say that I'm practicing law. Bullshit. I'm reading from the statutes page. I don't know what to tell them. If they think that's practicing law, I don't know. So again, Texas Family Code 153, assure that children will have frequent and continuing contact with parents who have shown the ability to act in the best interest of the child. There's some parents, and I don't like to usually use genders because we have moms and dads going through this. But in most cases, mothers are a little bit, they believe that their opinion of the child's best interest kind of overrules the judicial order. And they may say, well, I don't feel safe with my child not going. That's not you don't have that option anymore. You signed a court order. The judge has already adjudicated a court order. So you're under that court order's jurisdiction. You don't get to just trump a district court's judgment just because you believe the child's best interest. We still live in America. We still have due process. Parents are still innocent until proven guilty, although in family court, we know it's the complete opposite. But to hold everybody equally accountable, to hold everybody, men, women, white, black, grandparents, aunts, uncles, the children, the law, we have to hold everybody accountable to what's written. The court order is written. The public policy in 153 says assure that children will have frequent and continuing contact with parents who have shown the ability to act. When you went to court and you were given that court order with your rights, the judge said these, you, Mr. Saldana, have already shown the ability to act in the best interest of your child, and you have these days to see your child. You can make these medical decisions and these educational decisions, yada, yada, yada. So the public policy goes to everybody in the public, and it goes to law enforcement, to lawyers, judges, bailiffs, right? Public policy of the state is to ensure that children will have frequent and continuing contact. So the state of Texas wants parents to have that parent and child relationship. The state of Texas doesn't want little Johnny or little Christopher to go without a father. They want children to have frequent and continuing contact with the parents who have shown that ability. And if you've gone to court, you have a court order, you've been awarded days, even parents that have supervised visitation, you have still been awarded rights. You still have rights. And a lot of parents say, hey, look, I have supervised visitation and she still doesn't show up. And that's another live for another time, more education. But I want to stay on track. Best interest of the child, 153.002. This is a big issue, not only in the state of Texas, but throughout America. The best interest of the child shall always be the primary consideration of the court in determining the issues of conservatorship, possession, and access to the child. What is possession and access? Visitation, right? What is child custody determination? Visitation. And what does visitation mean? Possession and access. What's in the best interest of the child? Possession and access to the child. So when the parent doesn't turn over that child, that's not in the best interest of the child. Officer, it's not in the best interest of the child that parent restrict my parenting time. When you come at officers like this, you have the documentation. Like, again, I'm reading from the files that we have in our group, Interference with Child Custody, Texas Penal Code 2503. It's free for you to print, take with your court order. It's all highlighted. You just have to find me, get in, ask to get in, or whatever. So if you go to 153.073 of the Texas Family Code, rights of parents at all times. Now, these are your rights. You have the right to receive information. You have the right to confer with the other parent. You have to access medical, dental, psychological, emotional, educational records. You have the right to consult with a physician. Rights of parents, unless limited by the court, a parent appointed as a conservator. What are you? Most of y'all are joint managing conservators. So unless limited by a court order, these are your rights. You have these rights. And what did I tell you a right was? It's an entitlement. Just like you have the right to free speech, you have the right to bear arms, right? The Constitution gives you those rights. The Constitution, the Bill of Rights, the U.S. Constitution, the Texas Constitution, and its Bill of Rights, they give you all those rights, all those entitlements. So a lot of us parents, we have these rights, we have these entitlements, but we have never educated ourselves. And that's why I'm having this Facebook and TikTok, is because I believe in education. I believe in educating parents so they don't have to keep pouring money into the family law system that is a business, because it emotionally and mentally affects our children and financially fucks us up. So one of the new laws in the last 2 or 3 legislative sessions was attend school activities, including school lunches, performances, and field trips. Now, in the state of Texas, you have the right to attend school activities, school lunches, performances, and field trips. You don't have to ask that other parent. Some people are like, well, the mom said I couldn't go. Look, you take this law. Again, I'm not practicing law. I'm reading it from the statutes page. Rights of parents at all times, unless limited by a court order, a parent appointed as a conservator of the child at all times the right to attend school activities. So if you don't know where your child is, take your court order, find their school, go have lunch with them. I know it was hard with COVID, but that's an easy, direct route to seeing your child. Then you can get into other forms of possession and access visitation, whether it's through the civil courts, the criminal courts, or whatever. Maybe you just want to show up to school, but take these court orders. You have court orders, and as per section 153073, rights of parents at all times, those are your rights, your entitlements at all time, unless the court has told you you can't do it specifically. So if you go down one more in chapter 153.074, rights and duties during periods of possession. Rights and duties. What did I tell you a right was? An entitlement. What is a duty? An obligation. Go back and look at your court order. What does it say? Johnny has a right to, Maria has a duty to, right? That other parent has a duty to bring that child to the exchange center. That other parent has a right to physical possession as per their court order if you're a joint managing conservator here in the state of Texas, unless it's limited by the court. So rights and duties of periods of possession. That's why I said at 6 o'clock, that's the cutoff time, right? And it might be 6:30 or 7, depending on what your court order says, right? But rights and duties during periods of possession. Okay, my period of possession has started. It is 6:01. Child is supposed to be in my possession. Again, I'm not an attorney. Just go read it. Rights and duties during periods of possession, unless limited by the court. Again, unless the court says you can't do certain things, you can't do them. But in most cases, it's pretty much open. But you have the duty of care, control, and protection and reasonable discipline. We'll talk about discipline and abuse and false charges and the silver bullet, protective orders in another life. But tonight, I want to stay on track. The duty for care, control, and protection. If my child's not there at 6:05, hell, I'll give you 6:15, 6:30. I have a right to know where my child's at. Right and duty. I have a right for care, control, and protection. I have the right to care for my child. I have the right to control my child, where my child goes, because a 9-year-old can't say, hey, Dad, I'm going to go to my friend's house, whether you like it or not, or I'm going to spend a night at Janie's house or my boyfriend's house. The kids don't have that. You have the right for care, control where the child goes, and protection of that child. So rights and duties during periods of possession. So at 6:01, when I become the custodial parent, I have that absolute right for care, control, and protection and reasonable discipline, unless the court has told me otherwise. But that's where you kind of get these police officers. You start educating them. Hey, sir. And again, these files are all on my group page, Interference with Child Custody, Texas Penal Code 2503. You can't find the link, send me a DM. I do most of my work on Facebook. We're dipping into TikTok. But again, care, control, and protection. Now, this is a big one. 153.074 is a big law to know if you're in family court, if you're having issues with possession and access, because it says you have the duty for care, control, and protection. So what I did was I looked into the legal definition of duty. What's the legal definition of duty? And it imposes an obligation. Well, what does an obligation mean? It means you better do it, right? It's your duty. You're obligated to care and control and protect your child. Now, if you're in child support court, they're going to tell you it's your duty to support your child. Oh, that's the next one, the duty to support the child. Right. So in family court, they'll say, hey, it's your duty to support the child. And they'll use that word against you. But if you use that word against them for possession and access, they don't like to use it. So that's why I tried to educate the parents, because duty means an obligation, right? You're obligated for care, control, and protection. So if you don't know where your child is, I'm obligated to know where my child is, and you have to help me. And we'll get into missing child's stuff in just a minute. So interference with child custody, a person commits an offense if the person takes or retains a child younger than 18 years of age. Some of y'all say, hey, look, the officer said the child's 17 and they don't know what to do. Okay. A child is younger than 18 years of age. Interference with child custody from 18 and below. They can be 17 with 364 days under their belt, but they're still a child, right? Until the age of 18. So if they tell you 17, I can't make them do it. 15, I can't make them do it. 13, they get to pick and choose what that's a lie. That's a myth. It's untrue. It's in the family code. I don't know what else to say. Y'all can read it for yourself. I'll tell you where to go and read it, and you can read it. Legislative intent is how the law is written. That's another big one that I like to educate and promote is legislative intent is how the law's written. That is case law, and it's case law in all 50 states because it came down from the Supreme Court. The way the legislature writes its laws is how it reads. How it reads is how it goes. Legislative intent is how the legislator legislated it, how they made it a law, right? And so a lot of parents and fathers are told, hey, that only applies to the non-custodial parent when the non-custodial parent takes the child from the custodial parent, right? That's why I keep saying, quit talking and saying you're a custodial or no, stand on business. You're a joint managing conservator, you're a dad or you're a mom or whatever. When you start demeaning yourself by saying I'm a non-custodial or I'm a custodial parent, right? Custodial parents like to beat their chest like they're custodial parents, like they won something. You didn't win anything. We already know the Texas family courts are biased. They love to put men on child support because child support system funds the state. And we know that 94% of non-custodial parents in the state of Texas are of men. So we know that the family court system isn't just. We know it's not equal, and we live in a world where everybody wants and expects equality. We have a huge transgender movement, and they're demanding equality and transparency, and they want people to be accountable for the words that are said. But when a father says it, right, it's a whole different story. But to keep everybody equal, well, I don't know any transgender people, but I still treat them equally. I wouldn't tell them they can't go into a certain restaurant. They're people as well. But for men, some people think that when men learn their rights, they're all in a group. They're all fathers' rights, and they're trying to take the children from their mothers. No, men just want to hold people accountable so they can get their shit done and they can move along, right? Some dads don't even want custody, but some dads have to fight for custody because they can't see their child because the other parent is being spiteful. And it goes both ways. And that's why I don't like to really talk genders. I like to say offending parent, meaning the parent that's offended the law. So back to interference with child custody, the law says a person commits. It doesn't say a custodial. It doesn't say non-custodial. It says a person commits an offense if the person takes or retains a child younger than 18 years of age. Can it be a grandmother? Absolutely. Can it be an auntie? Can it be a sister? Can it be somebody? Absolutely. When that person knows that person over there knows I have a court order and they're still keeping that child, then you can file interference with child custody. Not because they're late, not because you hate your ex. It's when they know that they are willfully retaining that child. Some of y'all get text messages or emails, and I would advocate that y'all communicate through co-parenting apps or through emails because they're easier to authenticate in court. When you start using text messages, screenshots, and no phone numbers, or you have your baby mama as the B word labeled as her contact, it doesn't look good in court. It's just easier to authenticate if you contact each other through email because every email is attached to the cell phone. And so an excuse of, hey, I didn't get it, or I didn't pay my cell phone bill, right? Sometimes it's just easier, right? You have an IP address and you have a timestamp when you do things by email. And sometimes some of these screenshots don't have timestamps. They don't have the right date and you can't see it. There's apps to do that for you. But again, that's another live. But when the persons know that the person's takings or retention violates the express terms of a judgment or order. Now, there is one portion of interference with child custody where it does say non-custodial. It says a non-custodial commits an offense with the intent to interfere with lawful custody of the child younger than 18 years. The non-custodial parent, hold on. It says the non-custodial parent knowingly entices or persuades the child to leave the custody of the custodial parent. So in English, that means if I'm the non-custodial dad and my son is with his mom and I say, hey man, just jump over the fence. I'll go pick you up in the alley and we'll take off and we'll go. That is interference with child custody as well. When the parent that doesn't have parenting time tells that other child, just run away, climb out the window, jump the fence in the backyard, right? When they entice that minor to leave the parent that's supposed to have possession. Again, it says custodial, non-custodial. I tell you, those terms are not defined, but what it means is when you ask that child to run away from their custodial parent, the parent that's having, and it could happen to non-custodial parents or dads, let's just say. It could happen to dads when the custodial mom, right, might say, hey, look, you don't like vacation with your dad, or you don't like how the summer's going. Just come out the front door and I'll pick you up, and just tell your dad you're leaving, right? That could constitute as interference with child custody. But that's the only place it says non-custodial parent in that law. But interference with child custody here in the state of Texas and other states, it's worded different. Those words and definitions, I don't know. That's why I stick to Texas and I advocate for Texas and Texas laws, because I know how to read it. But if you're in another state and you're looking up interference with child custody, the wording, the terminology might be completely different. But for the most part, every state has an interference with child custody law. With that being said, the majority of those states have it classified as a felony, and it will always stay a felony, because the reason it's a felony is because if a parent takes that child outside the state of Texas to Oklahoma, to California, Montana, New York, wherever, just picks up and leaves, and you have court orders and you can't find your child, it allows a federal agency, whether it's the Marshals or the FBI, to get involved and go and capture the offending parent and bring the offending parent and the child back to the jurisdiction of Texas. So there's a reason why it's a felony. It's the same thing on the border. If you live in Laredo, Del Rio, El Paso, Brownsville, if that parent has family, the offending parent has family in Mexico and says, hey, look, I'm just going to take our little boy to Mexico to go live. Screw you. There's a reason why it's a felony. It's a felony in all of the states because the way the UCCJEA, Universal Child Custody Enforcement Jurisdiction Act, goes, it gives them federal jurisdiction if it's a felony. Now, if it's a Class C misdemeanor, Class B or A misdemeanor, the feds can't really get involved. So that's why it's a felony. That's why it'll always stay a felony. Now, I want to get into missing children. So a lot of parents come in and, well, let me go back a little bit. So missing children is a big deal for me because my child was really missing. I had to get the FBI involved, and I'm going to tell you how I got them involved. Did I think my child was being cared for by his mom? Absolutely. Did I know where my child was? No, I didn't know where he went to school. It was during Harvey. I didn't know where he lived. Their house was rained out and it was flooded. They weren't living there. I didn't have an address. I didn't know where he was. They weren't showing up to the exchange location. But did I think my ex was feeding him and clothing him? Absolutely. So what a missing child is, and it goes back to during your periods of possession for care, control, and protection that I was just talking about, you have the right for care, control, and protection of your child. So if your child's not at that exchange location, a lot of parents over the years have been beat up. They've been told by law enforcement, civil matter, they don't have money. They can't find where the whereabouts of the other parent to serve them. And so essentially over 3 or 4 years, over 3 or 4 years, they lose contact. They lose contact of their children, and nobody knows how to help them. So I started digging into the missing child statutes and laws. And so I want to go over missing missing child and what a missing child is, because I don't think a lot of y'all understand what a missing child is. And some of y'all are under the impression that a missing child is some white van picking up your little 3-year-old and offering them candy and blazing off into the sunset. And that's not what a missing child is, right? Of course, it falls under that. But 99.9, and these aren't my statistics, these are the FBI statistics, 99.9%, 99.9%. Remember, 99.9% of all kidnappings come from somebody in the immediate family, whether it's an auntie, a grandma, a mom, or a dad. Mostly all the Amber Alerts, and the majority of the Amber Alerts all come from a parent that's taking off with their child because CPS wants them. And that's really why you kind of get Amber Alerts is if there was an assault, if there was domestic violence, the child was in imminent danger. The child's in imminent danger, they're going to file an Amber Alert. A lot of parents say, well, I can't find my child, I want an Amber Alert. That's not what an Amber Alert's for. But you still have a missing child's report, and those are two different. So an Amber Alert is only when law enforcement knows for a fact that the child is in immediate danger. When they know that child, they have evidence to and articulate suspicion to believe that that child is in danger is when they do an Amber Alert. So now that we know what an Amber Alert is, let's go into the Code of Criminal Procedure, what a missing child is. Now, the Code of Criminal Procedure 63.001, what is a missing child, right? A missing child. What is a child, first of all? Well, if you've been on this live with me, you'll know that we've already talked about it. A child means a person who is under the age of 18. 16, 17 still constitutes a child under the age of 18. Some cops will say, well, they're 17, they're a runaway, they can make those decisions. 17 is legal in the state of Texas. No. Code of Criminal Procedure, Texas Family Code says a child means a person under 18 years of age, period. So law enforcement will tell you all these things. And whether they're uneducated, they don't read their own policies and procedures, I can't tell you. But a child, by the law, is the age of 18. I know that their policy can't be worse than a law. I know their policy has to be equal or greater to the law. So a child means a person under 18 years of age. What is a missing child? Here is the gold. A lot of y'all parents, what is a missing child? What is a missing child? Law enforcement would say your child's not missing, the child's with the other custodian. Law enforcement say, no, he's not missing. Your child's with the mom. You know they're with their mom. No, I don't know with their mom. They're supposed to be here at 6 o'clock. They're not here. Right? You don't want to do interference with child custody, then you're going to do a missing child's report. I'll just make you do more work. I'll just make you have to go and find my child. I tried to do things correctly with the court order, file an offense for interference with child custody, locate my child. And since you don't want to do it, now I'm going to make you jump through not just state laws, but federal laws for missing child. And so missing child means a child whose whereabouts are unknown to the child's legal custodian. That word, child's legal custodian. Missing child means a child whose whereabouts are unknown to the child's legal custodian. Not custodians, custodian, singular, not plural, right? And when you're reading law, again, legislative intent is how the law is written. Every word is word for word, singular, plural. If you don't know the definition, you need to look at it. A missing child whose whereabouts are unknown to the child's legal custodian. If you've been on this live, we went over what a legal custodian is. So if I go back to the very top where it says what a legal custodian is, means the managing conservatorship of a child. If you are a joint managing conservator, you have legal custody. So it's at your time of possession, you have the right for care, control, and protection. Your child's not there, right? You have that authority. You have that right. You have that entitlement to know where your child is. Care, control, and protection. So if I don't know the whereabouts of where my child is and I'm a legal custodian, I have every right to file a missing child's report. I don't know if I need to go over that again or y'all get it, but you can find it on, and all you have to do is read the Code of Criminal Procedure 63.001. Code of Criminal Procedure 63.001. Now, there is no law enforcement officer or agency in the state of Texas that can deny you a missing child report. Nobody. And their policy and procedure will run almost identical to the state law, because their policies have to be equal or better than the law. Let me say that again. Okay? Their policy has to either equal or be better than the law. It cannot be worse than the law. So a missing child is whose whereabouts are unknown to the child's legal custodian. And as I just said, 99.9% of all kidnappings come from someone in the immediate family. That's why, again, you see parents running off with their children with Amber Alerts. And that's why a lot of children are missing to dads, non-custodial parents, because for so long they've been told you can't claim your child missing. That's why so many kids are being trafficked, because we don't have the eyeballs on them. And again, that's for another live, another time. A child who did not voluntarily leave the care control of the custodian, and the taking of the child was not authorized by law. So the child did not voluntarily leave the care control of the custodian. So if dad goes to the school, picks up the daughter during mom's time, okay, that can constitute a missing child. The child did not voluntarily leave the care and control of their custodian, or it could be the man in the white van, right? Whoever had legal custody of that child, the child didn't leave voluntarily. The child was taken or retained in violation of the terms of the court order for possession and access to the child. What is possession and access? Possession and access equals visitation. For some of y'all that were watching earlier, we went over what the definition of visitation is, and visitation means possession and access here in the state of Texas. So a missing child, the child was taken or retained in violation to the terms of a court order for possession of or access to the child. So what is interference with child custody? It's almost the same thing when the person knows that the taking or retention is in violation of a court order or judgment. So do you see how interference with child custody, Texas Penal Code 2503, and missing child kind of mesh together? And again, you're just trying to be a parent. You're just trying to cut through the BS. You want to go spend time with your child for the weekend, and you just want to be a parent, and you have spiteful parents that want to keep and withhold the children from you. And so this is what this page is all about. And that's what a missing child is. So if you're a joint managing conservator and you haven't seen your child in 4 years, start getting with our group, start asking questions, start digging into the Code of Criminal Procedure 63.001 and start asking how to file this, because there are places in which you can file here in the state of Texas. And again, no law enforcement agency can't deny you a missing child's report. They can't even tell you. And this is another myth you might see on TV. Another myth you might see on TV is, well, the child's not missing unless they've been gone for 24 to 48 hours. No, absolutely not. The law says the whereabouts are unknown to the child's legal custodian. A missing child or missing persons report means information. So you just have to give information. Missing child or a missing persons report. I want a report. I'm going to give you information. I don't know where my child is. Okay. Given to law enforcement agency on a form used for sending information to the NCIC, National Crime Information Center. So no officer can deny you the ability to file a missing child's report. And they have a form that they can give you, but you can ask them for their policy. They probably won't want to give it to you there on scene. You might have to do a public information request. But again, their laws or their policies have to equal or be better than the state law. Now, if you scroll down to 63 Chapter 63.009 of the Code of Criminal Procedure, law enforcement requirements. What does law enforcement do? What should they do? What shall they do when receiving a missing child's report? So this one's a big one too. 63.009, law enforcement requirements. Local law enforcement agencies on receiving a report of a missing child shall, and again, if you've been with me since the beginning of the live, we talked about knowing certain words in law like may, shall, and must. Shall means they have to do it. Okay, a local law enforcement agency on receiving report of a missing child. If the subject, and we already went over high risk and amber alerts, if the subject of the report is a child or a person other than a child or described by subdivision 1, which is an amber alert in immediate danger, start an investigation with due diligence. So we already know they send out amber alerts, and subdivision 1 was amber alerts. We just talked about it. But the second portion is if the subject of the report is a child or a person that's other than an amber alert or silver alert described by subdivision 1, start an investigation with due diligence in order to determine the present location of the child. Now, a lot of cops say, hey, I called the mom. The mom said the children are okay. There's a whole Netflix series dedicated to that BS, and it's called the Gabriel Fernandez trials. If you've ever seen the Gabriel Fernandez trials on Netflix, law enforcement, the sheriffs there in California were doing welfare checks, knocking on the door, and essentially the mom and the boyfriend, I believe, would answer the door and say that the child was okay, and they never put eyes on the child. They never did a visual inspection of the child. They never. Thank you for the hat. Looks cool. But law enforcement never did any visual checks on that child, and that child ended up dead. And if you look at statistics like I do, 84% of abuse that children sustain come from a significant other. 84% of abuse that children sustain come from a significant other. So in many cases, some of these mothers get boyfriends that have protective orders, restraining orders, right? The same people, they have protective orders, restraining orders. They got out of their relationship. They can't see their kids, right? They hook up with your baby mama and they're abusing your child. And 84%, the FBI statistics say about 84% of the abuse that children sustain come from a significant other. And that's concerning, right? Especially, we've seen cases here in the state of Texas where fathers have been active trying to put eyes on their children. Again, like I said, 2 sets of eyeballs is better than 1. And so if your child comes to your house and they have bruises, you can question that. Of course, a mother would question that if she was put in that position, if she got bruises from baby daddy or she got the child back with bruises from baby daddy. So it is a concern, and that's how kids get trafficked. But when law enforcement receives a report, immediately, but not later than 2 hours. Immediately, but not later than 2 hours. So there's a 2-hour window. It's not 2:01. It's not 2 hours and 3 minutes. It's either put them in immediately or within 2 hours. That's your timeline. Immediately, but not later than 2 hours after receiving the report. So if you tell law enforcement, hey, I don't know where my child is, it's 6:04. I need to file that child missing. They have to put that child in the NCIC from 6:04 to 8:04. That's their timeline by state law. And again, their policy is going to match that, but law enforcement doesn't necessarily do that. They have to enter the name of the child into the clearinghouse. They have to inform the person who filed the report of the missing child or missing person that the information will be entered into the clearinghouse. So they have to tell you they're going to put them in the clearinghouse. And they shall immediately make reasonable efforts to locate the child and determine the well-being of the child. Again, Gabriel Fernandez trials, there wasn't any determination of well-being. All they did was ask the other parent, "Hey, is the child okay?" "Yep, a child's okay." They put no eyes on the child, and the child ended up dead. Again, it's a horrible thing that happened. But I understand why Netflix aired it, because it is a problem we see in America, where some of these parents are trying to be in the lives of their children, and then ultimately law enforcement isn't doing their portion. They're not following their policies and procedures. Now, if you haven't been with me the whole live, I will tell you this: you should always record. You should always record. Texas is a one-party state. You just have to know that you're recording. Law enforcement is recording. They have body cams. I would encourage you to record every conversation. Make sure that you get the correct audio. You have everything. If you're in a high conflict, you have issues with exchanges and police officers, recording is going to help you. And I know it's scary. I know sometimes you get intimidated when 4 cops show up and they tell you you're harassing. They tell you you have that right for care, control, and protection. So always record, because I've been arrested several times, and it was due to my recordings that saved me. They're going to retaliate when you start knowing your rights and you start flexing and standing on business. Law enforcement is going to start telling you things that don't really happen. They're going to try to threaten or try to intimidate you with some of their actions and some of their words. And the first one they're going to say is, we're going to file harassment on you. And again, if you have a court order to be at your child exchange center and you're asking officers to do their job, enforce the laws of the state, they're going to retaliate. And you need to be protected. So always record. If you go to jail, at least you have a recording, at least you have your court order in hand, and you're going to beat the case, other than not being prepared and then going through years of litigation. So always record. Now, recording is for protection, but recording is also for internal affairs. When you take officers to internal affairs for not enforcing a felony, not reporting the felony, not taking your missing child's report, you're going to need that recording. Some of y'all know that trying to subpoena law enforcement recordings it's pretty hard. You can't get them through public information. You might have to hire an attorney, a process server to subpoena, and it may take a little longer. And then if you're pro se or you have an attorney, you might have to have that attorney file it into the case during a certain time so you can use those records. And there's just so much more, right? But if you record, you take your camera or your cell phone. I like to put it in your breast pocket, because then you wear a polo with a breast pocket. Now it's recording. It doesn't look so weird, right? But you take it to internal affairs and you say, "Hey, look, I want to file a complaint on Officer Saldana, badge number 123. He denied me a felony offense report. He wouldn't look for my child. He was very rude. He went against policy by not reporting my child missing. I don't know where the whereabouts of the child are. Here are my court orders. And here is the recording. Can I give it to you on USB, or should I airdrop it?" Right? And when you start dropping all of this knowledge and you start, again, you're not trying to get the officer in trouble, but you're trying to hold him accountable to his policies, procedures, the laws, and federal state laws. And that's the only way you're going to do it. It's kind of intimidating. I know it can be intimidating, because sometimes internal affairs says, well, that's a civil matter, and they try to tell you the same bullshit that they've been telling us for years. Again, this is why we have the advocacy, so we can educate you parents that are having custody exchange issues. Now, we do know that we've been seeing violence at these exchange centers. You're starting to see boyfriends come out of the car wanting to whoop dad's ass, and dad wanting to whoop the new boyfriend's ass, and stepmom and baby mama, they're wanting to fight too. And so we live in 2024. Everybody's recording. It's on World Star. People are pulling each other, and then the kids are exposed to it. And in certain instances, people are being shot. Kids are losing their dads, their moms, significant others, stepdads, right? Because these parents are getting so agitated and so mentally, emotionally messed up by the going back and forth, right? And these family courts aren't doing anything to help the situation. They're not enforcing these orders. They're allowing things to just over process and just be repetitive. And these parents are losing rights. They're losing time with their children they'll never get back. And so a lot of these parents go through certain emotional states, and some of them go way overboard and commit crimes in front of their own children or someone else's children. And then that children loses a parent, and the other parent might go to jail, and they might have to live with somebody else. So it's very important that we uphold these laws. Now, another benefit to enforcing interference with child custody and locating the children, one, everybody wins. The court order wins, the judge wins, the judgment, because she's the one who adjudicated it. Law enforcement won't have to go back to that same house or that McDonald's or that HEB or whatever for that exchange center, because they have mitigated. So if we have any law enforcement officers, if you just did your duty and you try to mitigate the situation, you don't even have to arrest anybody. But if you said, hey, look, mom, look, dad, these are your court orders. You need to follow them. You don't file it. You don't follow them. Someone can go to jail. They could get felony charges. They could lose their children. They could lose their state assistance. There's so many things that can be said, right? But law enforcement likes to just say, go hire an attorney and take it back to court. If law enforcement would mitigate it and say, hey, look, I just read your orders. By law, your child has to go with dad, and they mitigated that situation, they would cut down on 90 to 95% of all of these issues. But if they did that, then family law attorneys would lose money because you wouldn't need to enforce anything. So you're taking away from family law attorneys, then they're going to take away from the whole petition or modification of the parent-child relationship, the amicus. Everybody loses money in the family court system because someone enforced the possession and access schedule. And so that's where I see some of the politics being played in the background that some of y'all might not see. Thanks for the cowboy hat. That's cool. But that's reality. That's what we live in. And so when I teach interference with child custody, or I read it to you, or I tell you where to find it, it's because I don't want parents to go through the same route. Look, I'm bringing you to the front of the line. I'm explaining it to you. It's up to you to do your due diligence. Start doing public information. Try to get their policies of your local law enforcement. Try to schedule a meeting with your district attorney or one of their representatives from their office. Talk to a state senator, a state rep. It's your duty, right? And if 40 of us in Houston all did that in Harris County, we all went to the DA's office and demanded accountability to enforce that law because all of our children are subject to emotional and mental distress, right? Thank you. Then things would get done. But when parents start just complaining, offer no solutions, and they just want things done by themselves, they get flicked like a booger. So what I always tell parents is try to find people in your area. I'm in San Antonio. If you're in San Antonio or having issues like this, try to contact me. I can help. I can meet up with you. We can work one-on-one. But I try to assemble parents that are in the same situation, having the same issues, that want clearer understanding. We try to meet in San Antonio to go over these things, and we've been able to do some great things. Now, one of the solutions to all of this was House Bill 969. House Bill 969 was just passed this last year, September 1, 2023. And as far as I know, I think there's only one county in the state of Texas, I might be wrong, that has authorized 969 to go in effect. Now, House Bill 969 is the solution to not making parents felons. House Bill 969 is the new law that they attached to 2503 that just basically says in plain text English that it gives the county or the city the ability to make a city or a county ordinance, right? It being a felony, they can't do certain things because it has to be reported as a felony because it's a felony. So with House Bill 969, what it did was it says, hey guys, you guys in San Antonio, county of Bexar, city of San Antonio, or county of Harris, and city of Houston, city of Bel Air, city of Leon Valley, whichever city you're in, y'all can go to your council members, y'all can go to your county commissioners, and you can advocate for an ordinance, a city ordinance or a county ordinance, to say up to $500 that a parent may be fined up to $500. It could be $100, it could be $250, $300, $500, but the $500 is the max. But be fined up to $500 for each interfering with child custody. So instead of writing a felony report, what we're going to do is we're going to provide an ordinance, and we're going to tell our law enforcement agencies that when you get an interference with child custody, you're going to write it up like a ticket. And just like you would give a moving violation or stop sign violation or whatever, you'll be able to give a ticket to the offending parent, and that ticket may be up to $500 depending on what the judge says, right? And we've gotten some feedback back and forth, and some people y'all are putting more money on children's heads and blah 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 blah, and they're making more money, blah 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 blah. I'll tell you right now, this is the secret, and this is why it was done this way. We did it this way because if you have 3 speeding tickets and you get a 4th speeding ticket, that judge probably is going to be like, man, that's 3 strikes. You done messed up. You've been speeding 3 times, 110, 85, and 90, and you just did it again, right? That creates a pattern. So if you have 3, 6, 10 citations where this parent has had to go to the municipal court, had to go before a municipal judge to talk about interference with child custody, why haven't you gone? These are your court orders. Why have you not been abiding? Why have you not turned? I'm going to fine you $100. I'm going to fine you $200, $500, right? You can take those dispositions, whether they took probation, whether they paid the fine, whether they got a warrant out for their arrest because they didn't pay the fine, whatever it is, you can take those depositions back to family court, hand them 3 depositions where it says, hey, 3 judges told my ex and fine them, for these occurrences for violating your court order, judge. And that was the whole purpose of House Bill 969. Now, again, the bigger cities, San Antonio, Houston, Dallas, Tarrant County, El Paso, have not, that I know of, created an ordinance for House Bill 969. But House Bill 969 allowed the state, the city, and the county to come up with an ordinance. So with that being said, please contact your county commissioners, contact your city council, ask to talk about House Bill 969 that went into effect September 1, 2023, there in Austin, and see if you can get an ordinance for your area. Again, a lot of this stuff that I'm going through, we have been able to bring parents together just based on this issue and this issue alone. When we hear stories from parents that are having these issues, a lot of these parents have other issues within family court. You start seeing the family court corruption, and everybody that's in family court knows that family court is a joke. It's a circus, kangaroo court. They don't follow the law. Judges legislate from the bench. And if you're like me, just wanting to be a parent, just wanting to spend time with your child, the offending parent, they're going to keep the children from you. They're going to make false allegations saying you're abusing the child, essaying the child, or the child doesn't want to be with you. The child's scared of you. So there's a lot of allegations that get thrown. And in most cases, a lot of those allegations are upheld in family court because the standard of proof is so low. So you see a lot of corruption. You see judges that are buddies with attorneys and bailiffs, and attorneys that are friends with each other, and they're litigating each other, and they're not zealously fighting. And then monies get exchanged, and lawyers are spending litigants' money without providing a service. They're not calling back, and a lot of parents get frustrated. So what we have done is we know civil court's a mess, but I still have a right to see my child, so I'm going to use it on the criminal side. One of the other big lies that law enforcement will tell you is that the DA says that you need to go talk to a family court judge, and when the family court judge, they'll put them in criminal contempt. And that's false, right? Criminal contempt in civil court is different from the criminal justice system. Criminal is criminal, civil is civil. And while you have quasi-criminal in the civil side, the criminal is a criminal. If you violate the penal code, you're selling drugs, you're assaulting people, breaking and entering, drinking and driving, whatever you're doing, interference with child custody is on that criminal side. So you have a right to file a criminal complaint. There's nothing in the law that says you must file with a civil court judge before you can file a criminal complaint for interference with child custody. Some of y'all parents that might be the same age I am, I'm 44, know the O.J. Simpson trial. O.J. was on trial for the unaliving of Nicole and Ron Goldman, and he was found not guilty. But then on the civil side, he was found guilty. So you have two different portions of the justice system that you can work. So you should work both avenues because you're trying to get from point A to point B being your children. Now, if you're just trying to take what I'm saying to navigate the water so you can make the other parent a felon, that's on you. We don't make parents felons. We don't advocate to make parents felons. The parents make felons who don't know how to abide by court orders. They do that to themselves. The court orders are explanatory, very explanatory. You have the option to talk to a lawyer to ask for advice in what you should do. And if you still don't obey your lawyer, you don't obey the court order, you don't obey the police officer, you don't obey the DA, then maybe you deserve to lose custody and become a felon. I don't know how else to put it. Parents make themselves felons when they don't abide by that court order. With that being said, hey guys, again, you can find me here on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Rumble, YouTube, X, and most of them are at 25.03 or Texas 25.03. You can find me on my page. I run a group, I run another group or another page that deals with court corruption. I'm still dealing with things in my case, but we are seeing Harris County, which is the largest county in Texas, start enforcing this. We've done a lot of work over the last 7 years. It is getting enforced. I know it didn't work for you, but we have to make sure it starts working, or else our children, when they become moms and dads, they're going to have this issue as well. You're going to be at the point as a grandparent wanting to spend time with your alienated child and their alienated and your alienated grandchild, right? And so it's a cycle that just keeps going around and around. And so when you start educating parents about your rights, you start educating parents where to find some of these things, you start using the tools that are given to you like social media, and you put it in a way that parents can understand, where they don't need to hire an attorney for every little thing. I think it benefits the child and the well-being of the child overall. So thanks for watching. You guys, y'all have anything, please follow. If you know me, I just ask that you share my content. And the reason I ask you to share is because there's somebody going through this issue. There's always somebody, somebody that doesn't like their baby daddy. Their songs say, fuck my baby daddy and my baby daddy, right? And so it's a big topic these days. And if we don't fix it or make it better, our children are going to be mentally and emotionally distraught. I mean, we already have kids eating Tide Pods. My son would have never done that. I would have taught him right. And I think when you're trying to be a parent, it sucks that you have to fight. But right now we live in some weird times right now, and doing what's right, standing on business and is the new way. That's what a lot of people are doing. They're standing on business. And for y'all, I don't know about y'all, but for me, when I say I'll do anything for my child, I'll go to jail for my child. I'll go to jail for my child. And I have. I've gone to jail 4 times for my children. I've never been criminally charged with anything, but I've been I've been to jail. I've never been criminally prosecuted. Let me say that. I have been charged with assault on a peace officer, bodily injury for asking for his supervisor, tapping him on his shoulder. I got thrown in jail for criminal trespass with a judicial court order to pick up my child. They didn't enforce the felony, but they arrested the dad for a Class B misdemeanor. So I've been around the ringer. Again, a lot of this is just to educate and help parents that are going through this. So, and grandparents as well, because we all know that children benefit from having grandparents, and I advocate for that. I'm in Texas. The legislative session's coming up. We're going to be introducing new bills. We want cameras in our courtrooms, so we can hold judges accountable. We want to do more great things for parents. I'm not here for the money. I've been doing it for 7 years. It's been a grassroots organization. I work on donations. If you can help out with reams of paper, printer ink, certain things, I really do appreciate it, because it goes back into the community. Here in Bexar County, about 74% of the children that are incarcerated in the Bexar County detention facility, juvenile detention facility, 74% of those children are coming from single parent households. They're starting to ask for mentors from the public to come mentor these children that are incarcerated in the juvenile detention center. And I think it's wild that you're asking for strangers to come mentor them when you have parents that are able and they're able to be a parent and mold their children to their likings and to how they want to raise their child. And law enforcement, DAs, just refer you back to civil court just to I guess get profits, based on your child's head. Never mind their child, never mind their children's funds, right? They're taking money from you, but your child's all screwed up because nobody will help you. That's where I have a problem. My child is not for sale. My child, I'll be damned if my child goes to the juvenile detention center because he didn't have a dad. Some of us dads are congregating, come together, assembling, whatever you want to say it. But we advocate for all parents, because if you treat every parent equally to the law, the child wins. It's not about you or him, mom or dad. It's about our children. And if you can't get over it, that your baby daddy wants to spend time with his child, or baby mama, some women do make mistakes. There's a stereotype that the women that lose their children are all bad moms or unfit here in the state of Texas. And I've met some great women in this advocacy that were just screwed over by the courts because of family court corruption, because there was lawyers or amicus that were friends with friends, and then just moving the child where they thought they belonged due to the financial interest in the issue. So I have met some great moms. There's a lot of great moms that follow me. There's some feminist mom groups out there that think that I'm just for dads. And again, I encourage you to get to know me, get to know some of my groups, some of the admins, moderators. There's some women in there, and they're great. And to all you stepmoms that are helping your significant other, thank you. Share, because I think stepmoms are important, because in reality, dads quit. I don't know what to do. I'm out of money. I have a new family. I have more kids over here. I can't keep spending money in family court. I can't keep fighting for a child that's been alienated, that talks to me a certain way, that, these are all real problems that are just reoccurring, that have become a pattern of the abusive practices in family court. So I encourage you to spread, share, share, so I can bring awareness to this issue, is what I'm trying to say. Because the more people I reach, the bigger army I make, and the bigger army I make, the more we can take to Austin to make new laws so that our children won't go through this. On that note, my voice is getting all crazy. I need a drink. Thanks for watching. Share my content, please. I love you guys. I have some other content creators that are doing some of the same stuff I'm doing, and I might be doing lives with them. We have a podcast coming up here in San Antonio. We're going to be interviewing politicians and lawyers and judges. And And we're going to be asking them straight up if they think interference with child custody needs to be enforced and what are their thoughts on it, and see their perspectives. So we have a lot of things going for us. We've always been a big group. We've always been active. I work on this stuff. This is my life. I'm in the trenches because I don't see my child due to false allegations and a corrupt family court in Harris County. So share my stuff so I can give somebody some knowledge. And that's it. Thanks for watching, and I appreciate all of y'all.